Hello, my name is Andrea, and this is Starlight Stories for Magical Children. Here you will find a collection of stories that were told to me from storytellers from magical realms, the animal kingdom, and nature. I am delighted to share these stories with you, and maybe as you listen, you'll find that life really is magical, and so are you. Bo the young buck, formerly known as the Fawn, is back with part 3 of a 4-part story series. He's here to share about his adventures with the fairy leading up to the summer solstice. So if you haven't heard the 2 stories before this one, I recommend that you go back and give those ones a listen first. So let's begin. Thea put the glowing crystal, which had now stopped glowing, into a pouch tied around Bo's neck. And quietly, with great satisfaction, the 2 headed back to the fairy village together, just completing their first adventure. Thea and Bo arrived back at the fairy village and placed the crystal on the pedestal. Exhausted from the late night, they both quickly drifted off to sleep. The morning came. The sun had just risen, and Thea was awake. She was making a pot of tea and thinking about the adventure to come. Bo, on the other hand, was still asleep. On a typical morning, Bo would have already been awake to greet the sun. But the adventure from the night before had required him to stay up well into the night, much later than he normally falls asleep. So Thea was letting him rest. She knew he would need his energy for the adventure of the day. She had already told Bo that they would be finding the flower that opened its petals only when the sun was at the highest point in the sky. But what he didn't know yet is that this magical flower grew only at the top of a cliff. It would be a full morning of climbing. As Thea was stirring honey into her tea, she was thinking about how long it might take to reach the top of the cliff. Thea had been there before. She'd seen the magical flower, but every time she had gone there, she had always flown. But Bo cannot fly, so she didn't know exactly how long it would take to reach the top of the cliff. Would they make it on time? She knew Bo was strong and fast, but would the sun be faster? She had just started to consider the possibility of using fairy dust when she heard Bo stir. His eyes blinked open. He was awake. "Good morning, Thea," Bo said. Bo glanced at the position of the sun in the sky. "I don't think I've ever slept this long into the morning. Is it time to start our next adventure? Where are we going, anyway?" Thea replied, "Yes, we will need to set out shortly, but first make sure you eat. You're going to need the energy today. For the magical flower is not far away, but it is high up. We will need to make our way up the cliff to reach the top, for that is where the flower grows." Bo felt uncertain. This would be the first time he'd ever climbed so high. Could he do it? He didn't really have a choice. He would need to try. It wasn't long until Bo and Thea were ready to start their adventure. Now, this part of the story is relatively uneventful. They found the trail and they followed it, higher and higher and higher, the elevation gradually increasing. They kept going higher and higher and higher, all while staying aware of the sun's position and looking ahead to see how much further they'd have to go. As they rose higher, so did the sun. Bo felt his breath start to shorten. He knew he could keep going, but he felt his pace begin to slow down. He had never, ever moved his body like this before. And then both Bo and Thea began to notice that even though they were steadily making their way to the top of the cliff, the sun was rising in the sky faster than they were. They didn't know if they could make it on time. They looked up to see how much higher the cliff was. They still had a little ways to go. "Okay," Thea said, "I didn't want to have to do this, but I think I'm going to have to use some of my fairy dust to help you fly." Bo stopped. "Wait a second. This whole time you could have just used fairy magic and we could have flown up there?" Thea laughed. "I hear what you're saying. I know it sounds so much simpler, but sometimes fairy dust can be a little unpredictable. It can even be a little risky to use. I mean, Bo, have you ever flown before?" No, I have not," Bo admitted. "Right," said Thea. "Flying does take skill and practice. My thought was that if we could just climb to the top of the cliff before the sun reaches the highest point in the sky, it would be reliable and safe. But you're right. I don't know that we have a choice anymore. I think we need to try the fairy dust." "Okay," said Bo. "What do I do?" Thea said, "You're going to close your eyes and stay still. Imagine that you are floating off the ground and just keep thinking to yourself over and over, 'It's so lovely to fly. It's so lovely to fly.' While you do that, I'm going to sprinkle the dust on you. And at some point, what's going to happen is that you will start to feel yourself actually float off the ground. When that happens, you might instinctively try and stay on the ground, for that is what feels safest to you. But don't resist the feeling of floating. Just let go. Keep thinking, 'It's so lovely to fly.' Are you ready?" Thea asked. Bo took a deep breath. "I'm ready." He closed his eyes. He imagined he was floating, and just as Thea instructed him to do, he thought to himself, "It's so lovely to fly. It's so lovely to fly." Thea flew above him and sprinkled the magic fairy dust over him. He just kept thinking, "It's so lovely to fly." And then, just as Thea had told him would happen, he began to feel his body actually start to lift off the ground. He opened his eyes and looked down, and he was, in fact, hovering above the ground. Thea, I'm flying. I'm doing it. I can do it." Okay, Thea said. "Just a second, hang tight." Whoa, Bo cried out. "But I can't control it. How do I control where I'm going?" Bo realized he didn't have control of his own body. He couldn't choose which way to fly. He started to panic. "Thea, help me. Please help." "I will help you, Bo," Thea said. "But the first thing is, we need to help you find that feeling of calm again. So close your eyes. It's okay. You're safe. I'm with you." Bo reluctantly closed his eyes. Thea continued speaking. "Imagine that your hooves are actually on the ground. Feel the coolness of the dirt. And while you do that, hear every sound that you can that is around you." Bo opened his ears and could hear the sound of running water off in the distance. He could hear the sound of birds chirping and the wind blowing through the leaves. "Now," Thea continued, "find your breath and see if you can breathe all the way down to your tail. To do this, Bo had to take a long, slow, deep breath. And as he did, he found himself feeling calmer. "Okay, I'm here," Bo said, as he opened his eyes. Thea looked straight at him. "This is what you need to know. There is a way to control what direction you fly, but it's only you who can figure this out. Either you can control the movements just by thinking about the movements, or you can control the movements by moving your body in a certain way. You will have to experiment. Start first by thinking about going a certain direction." Bo thought to himself, "Turn around, turn around, turn around." But nothing happened. His body did not turn around. "Okay," Thea said. "It seems you can't control your movements with your thoughts. Try turning your head the direction you want to go." Bo turned his head to the left, but his body did not turn with his head. Bo turned his head to the right, but again, his body did not turn. "That's not working either," Bo said to Thea. "Okay, what about your tail?" Thea suggested. Bo thought that sounded so silly, but he didn't know if he had many more options. So he lifted his tail up, and as he did, he felt himself floating higher into the sky. "Whoa, I think it's working," Bo cried out. "Try another direction," Thea said. Bo turned his tail to the right, and this time he began flying to the right. When he moved it to the left, he moved to the left. Within a few minutes, he had figured out how to move his tail to fly wherever he wanted to. "I think we can make it now," Bo called to Thea. Thea smiled wide. "Well done, Bo. Follow me." Bo followed behind Thea, flying higher and higher above the treetops. They were nearing the top of the cliff, and when they landed, they could see the sun was not far from reaching the top of the sky. They took a moment to catch their breath and have a look around. There was a small patch of flowers, all pointed towards the sun, each with their petals closed tightly. "There they are," Thea said. "Now, they are about to open, but before they do, here's what I need you to do," Thea said to Bo. "You will have 1 minute to carefully pick the flower, making sure to pick it from the stem and not to damage the petals. Can you do it?" "I can," said Bo. "I'll just use my teeth." "Okay," said Thea. "Then you will need to fly carefully home and place the petal on the altar next to the glowing crystal. It's important that the flower remains intact." "I will do it," said Bo. And just as he said those words, the sun reached the highest point in the sky, and every one of the flowers opened its petals towards the sun. Each flower was a different color. "Thea, does it matter which color I pick?" asked Bo. "No," said Thea. "Pick whatever one is calling to you." Bo knew he had to decide quickly. There was a yellow one near him that looked so cheery, just like the sun. He bent down and put his teeth around the stem of the flower and bit down. He heard and felt a snap. "I've got a flower," he tried to speak, realizing he couldn't with the flower in his mouth. A few seconds later, all the remaining flowers closed their petals, but the one in his mouth stayed open. "The flower will now stay open forever," said Thea. "Let's go." Bo flew behind Thea, and they happily made their way back to the fairy village. Their second adventure complete. To be continued.